My father returned after 10 years so he could exploit my little sister. 3 years later, he's back, claiming he's dying and needs our help. The last time I saw my dad before he disappeared, he knelt down and told me I'd always be his little man. Then he got in his truck and drove away. I was 9. My sister Lily was 3. I didn't see him again until I was 19, and by then, everything had fallen apart. Our mom was never much of a mother. She yelled a lot, slammed cabinets, blamed us for everything. She sold substances out of the garage and made us lie about it. When I was 17, I called the cops on her. Not because I wanted to be a hero or anything. I just wanted Lily safe. With our mom in jail and our dad long gone, I became Lily's guardian. I dropped out of regular school and switched to online. I worked 2 jobs and picked Lily up from school every day. I skipped meals so I could afford her birthday cake. I had no backup plan and no support, but we were okay. We had each other. And a program we got into gave me $2,000 a month to care for her, which is the only reason we had groceries. Then out of nowhere, my dad came back. He looked healthy, clean clothes, nice shoes. He said the danger was over. He said he wanted to make things right. He told me I deserved to live my own life and go to college like a normal kid. He said he could take Lily, that it would give her stability and me freedom. At first, I didn't trust him, but he started showing up to Lily's school plays. He helped us pay a late water bill. He fixed the broken door in our apartment. He said he wasn't perfect, but he wanted to be there now. So I let my guard down. I started to think maybe he changed. I gave him temporary custody. He told me to take a break, move in with grandma and grandpa, focus on myself. He promised he'd move there too so Lily wouldn't be alone. So I quit both my jobs. I hugged Lily bye. I left behind my friends and our apartment and everything I'd built. I moved across the state and started focusing on myself. And then, just a few weeks later, I got a call from Lily. Her voice was shaking. She said Dad was using the $2,000 to buy drinks and pills. She said there were men in the house every night. She said they hit on her. One tried to touch her. She said Dad told her to stop wearing shorts and it wouldn't happen. I packed a bag the next morning. I told my dad I was coming to get her. He blocked my number. Then I found out he told everyone in the family that I had hit Lily when I had custody, that I was using the $2,000 for myself. He said he only stepped in to protect her, and people believed him. My aunt stopped talking to me. Childhood friends unfollowed me. When I called Lily again, she said she couldn't talk and hung up. I didn't know what to do. I was the one who raised her. I gave up everything for her, and now everyone saw me as the villain. I kept trying to remind myself that Lily was scared, not cruel. That fear could twist the truth. With no one to help me, I went to the one person I swore I'd never see again. My mom. She was still in prison, still angry. She smirked when she saw me, said I looked tired. I told her what happened. At first, she just played with me, told me maybe I got what I deserved, but then she got serious. She said my dad and her both sold substances, said he was the one who got them into it, but he made a bad deal and skipped town, left her to take the fall. I asked if she thought he was still dealing. She laughed and said, there's no way he's not. That man only comes back when there's something to take. That was all I needed. I went back to our old neighborhood. I asked around. Most people shut me down. One guy said, don't stir up drama. Then I walked into a corner store I hadn't been to in years. The new owner was about my age. She looked at me and asked if I was Paul's son. I said yes. She told me to follow her to the back. She said her dad used to own the place but died a few months back. While cleaning, she found a ledger and a box of tapes. Her dad had been blackmailing people for years. He'd record deals happening out back and collect hush money. One name showed up in the ledger again and again. My dad's. She let me take the tapes. Said they made her feel sick. Said she didn't want anything to do with it. I watched hours of footage. Most were grainy, but the last one hit me like a truck. It was dated just weeks before he came back into our lives. My dad stood behind the store, handing off a bag. He looked over his shoulder, smiled, and said, gotta clean up. Got court next week. I brought everything to the police. They launched an investigation. 2 weeks later, they arrested my dad at Lily's school. I was granted temporary custody again. Lily cried when she saw me. She said she was sorry. She asked if we were safe now. I told her yes, but I wasn't sure. A few days later, I went on a date with a girl from the shop. I thought maybe I deserved something normal. Maybe I was finally healing. I hadn't smiled like that in months. But then, in the middle of the date, my phone rang. Blocked number, but I answered. And of course, it was my dad. He said he made bail and that I'd regret everything. That's when I heard Lily screaming in the background. I ran to my car and called 911 while speeding toward our apartment. The dispatcher kept telling me to slow down, but I couldn't. All I could think about was Lily. I got to our place in record time. The door was wide open. I rushed inside, calling her name. No answer. The place was trashed, drawers pulled out, clothes everywhere. Lily's favorite stuffed rabbit was on the floor, one ear torn off. The sight of that rabbit, the one I'd saved up for 3 weeks to buy her for her 5th birthday, made my stomach turn. I checked every room twice. No sign of her. No sign of my dad. I ran back outside and asked the neighbors if they saw anything. Mrs. Jenkins next door said she heard yelling about an hour ago. She saw my dad dragging Lily to his truck. She thought it was just a tantrum. I wanted to scream at her for not calling someone, but there wasn't time. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely hold my phone. The police showed up 5 minutes later. I told them everything. They took notes and said they'd put out an alert, but I could tell they weren't moving fast enough. One officer kept asking if I was sure Lily was in danger, if maybe this was just a custody dispute. I showed him the tapes on my phone, told him about the substance dealing, about the men in the house, about everything. He finally seemed to get it. They put out an Amber Alert for Lily. I sat in our wrecked apartment waiting for news. My phone kept buzzing with messages from family members, all asking what I'd done now. None of them believed me. They all thought I was making things up to get Lily back. I turned my phone off. I remembered something Lily told me during that phone call weeks ago. She mentioned Dad taking her to a cabin sometimes, said it was where his business friends met up. I had no idea where this cabin was. I called my mom's old friend Tanya, who used to hang out with both my parents. She didn't want to talk to me at first. I begged her, told her Lily was in danger. She finally gave in and said there was a hunting cabin about 2 hours north. My dad used to take buddies there to party. I wrote down the directions and headed out. I didn't tell the police where I was going. I was afraid they'd stop stop me or take too long. The drive felt like forever. Every minute that passed, I imagined what Lily might be going through. I kept picturing her scared face, kept hearing her voice on that phone call. The roads got worse as I drove north, gravel turning to dirt, potholes threatening to swallow my tires whole. When I finally found the dirt road leading to the cabin, it was getting dark. I unalived my headlights and parked a quarter-mile away. I walked the rest of the way through the woods. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure someone would hear it. When the cabin came into view, I saw my dad's truck parked outside. A single light was on inside. I crept closer, staying low. Through a dirty window, I could see Lily sitting on a couch. She was hugging her knees to her chest. My dad was pacing back and forth, talking on the phone. I couldn't hear what he was saying, but he looked angry. He kept pointing at Lily like he was threatening her. I needed to get her out of there. I had no weapon, no plan, just determination. I circled the cabin looking for another way in. There was a back door that looked less sturdy than the front. I waited until my dad went into what looked like a bathroom. Then I made my move. I rushed to the back door and tried the handle. Locked. I looked around for something to break in with and spotted a pile of firewood. I grabbed a heavy log and smashed it against the doorknob. The noise was louder than I expected. I froze, listening for my dad's reaction. Nothing. I hit it again. The lock broke and the door swung open. Lily's eyes went wide when she saw me. I put my finger to my lips. She nodded and started to stand up. That's when the bathroom door opened. My dad stepped out, phone still in hand. He saw me and his face twisted with rage. "You little piece of garbage," he snarled. I lunged for Lily, grabbing her arm and pulling her toward the back door. My dad was faster than I expected. He caught my shirt and yanked me backward. I lost my grip on Lily and stumbled. He shoved me hard against the wall. My head cracked against a picture frame. Glass shattered. "Run, Lily!" I shouted. She hesitated for a second, then bolted for the door. My dad turned to go after her, but I tackled him from behind. We crashed into the coffee table. It splintered under our weight. I'm not a fighter, never have been, but in that moment, all I could think about was giving Lily time to escape. My dad was stronger, though. He flipped me over and pinned me down. His fist connected with my jaw. Stars exploded in my vision. He hit me again. I tasted blood. "You ruined everything," he spat. "I had a good thing going. The money, the connections, then you had to play hero." I heard a car engine start outside. Lily had made it to my car. My dad heard it too. His head snapped toward the sound. That split second of distraction was all I needed. I grabbed a piece of the broken coffee table and swung it at his head. It connected with a sickening crack. He slumped to the side, dazed, but still conscious. I scrambled to my feet and ran. Outside, Lily had managed to start my car but wasn't driving. She was only 13 after all. I jumped in the driver's seat and peeled out, spraying dirt and gravel. In the rearview mirror, I saw my dad stumble out of the cabin, blood running down his face. He was shouting something, but I couldn't hear him over the engine. We drove in silence for about 10 minutes. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Lily was crying quietly beside me. When we hit the main road, I pulled over and called 911. I told them where the cabin was and that my dad was there. I explained the situation as best I could. They told me to drive to the nearest police station. The station was a small building in a town I'd never heard of. An officer named Deputy Wilson took our statements. He was middle-aged with kind eyes. He listened without interrupting as I explained everything. About the custody arrangement, about the substances, about the kidnapping. He took photos of my bruised face and the cuts on my hands. Lily sat next to me the whole time, holding onto my arm like she was afraid I'd disappear. When it was her turn to talk, she confirmed everything I said. She told Deputy Wilson about the men at the house, about how our dad would leave her alone for days sometimes, about how he threatened to hurt me if she ever told anyone what was happening. Deputy Wilson called Child Protective Services. A woman named Ms. Ramirez showed up about an hour later. She had a clipboard and a stern expression. She took Lily into another room to talk privately. I sat in the waiting area, my knee bouncing nervously. What if they didn't believe us? What if they took Lily away? My phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "This isn't over." I showed it to Deputy Wilson. He took my phone and added it to the evidence. He told me they'd sent officers to the cabin, but my dad was already gone. His truck was there, but he wasn't. They were looking for him now. Ms. Ramirez came back with Lily. She told me they needed to place Lily in emergency foster care while they investigated. I started to protest, but she held up her hand. She said I could apply for emergency custody, but it would take time. The system had to work through proper channels. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. After everything we'd been through, they were still going to separate us. Lily started crying again. She begged Ms. Ramirez to let her stay with me. The woman's expression softened slightly, but she stood firm. Rules were rules. Deputy Wilson stepped in. He suggested a compromise. There was a family in town that often took in emergency placements, the Morgans. They lived just a few blocks from the station. He could arrange for Lily to stay there, and I could get a motel room nearby. That way, we wouldn't be far apart while everything got sorted out. It wasn't ideal, but it was better than nothing. Ms. Ramirez agreed. She made some calls and arranged for the placement. I hugged Lily tight before they took her to meet the Morgans. I promised I'd see her tomorrow, that I wouldn't leave town without her, that I'd fix this somehow. I checked into a motel called the Pine View. It was cheap and smelled like cigarettes, but it was close to where Lily was staying. I couldn't sleep that night. Every noise made me jump. I kept expecting my dad to burst through the door. Around 3 a.m., I got another text. "You think you're smart? I know people. This is just beginning." The next morning, I went to the station to check on the investigation. Deputy Wilson wasn't there. Instead, I talked to Officer Bryant, a younger guy with a buzz cut. He seemed annoyed by my questions. He told me they were still looking for my dad, that these things take time. When I asked about protection for Lily, he shrugged and said they'd increase patrols in the area. I left feeling uneasy. I drove to the Morgans' house. It was a small blue house with a well-kept yard. Mrs. Morgan answered the door. She was in her 50s with gray hair and glasses. She seemed nice enough. She told me Lily was doing okay, that she'd had breakfast and was watching TV in the living room. Lily ran to me when she saw me. We hugged for a long time. Mrs. Morgan gave us some privacy. Lily told me the Morgans were nice, but she wanted to come home. I explained that we had to wait for the investigation to finish, that it might take a few days. She nodded, but I could tell she was scared. I spent most of the day with her. We played board games and watched movies. I tried to keep things normal, but there was this tension hanging over us. Every time a car drove by, we both tensed up. Around dinner time, Mr. Morgan came home from work. He was tall, with a beard and a booming voice. He invited me to stay for dinner, but I declined. I didn't want to impose. As I was leaving, Lily grabbed my hand. She whispered that she'd heard Mr. Morgan on the phone earlier. He was talking to someone about Paul's kid. My dad's name is Paul. It could have been innocent, but my instincts were screaming at me that something was wrong. I went back to my motel and called Deputy Wilson's direct line. He picked up on the third ring. I told him about the text messages and what Lily had overheard. He said he'd look into it, but I could tell he thought I was being paranoid. Maybe I was. Stress does weird things to your mind. That night, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I drove back to the Morgans and parked down the street. I just wanted to make sure everything was okay. Around midnight, a car pulled up to their house. A man got out and went inside. He wasn't there long, maybe 10 minutes. When he came out, I recognized him. It was one of the guys who used to hang around our apartment when my dad first came back. One of the men Lily said had made her uncomfortable. My blood ran cold. I called Deputy Wilson again. No answer. I tried 911. The dispatcher said they'd send someone to check it out, but it would be at least 30 minutes. I couldn't wait that long. I drove to the house and parked right out front. I walked up to the door and knocked loudly. Mr. Morgan answered, looking annoyed. I asked to see Lily. He said she was sleeping and to come back tomorrow. I pushed past him into the house. Mrs. Morgan was in the living room looking nervous. I called out for Lily. No answer. I ran upstairs, checking bedrooms. She wasn't there. I confronted the Morgans. Mr. Morgan got in my face, telling me to leave before he called the cops. I told him I already had. Mrs. Morgan started crying. She finally admitted that my dad had called them, said he was an old friend of Mr. Morgan's, said there was a misunderstanding and he just needed to talk to Lily. They'd let him take her an hour ago. I was furious. I grabbed Mr. Morgan by his shirt and demanded to know where they went. He claimed he didn't know, just that my dad said he was taking her somewhere safe until things cooled down. I wanted to hit him, but I knew that wouldn't help Lily. The police arrived a few minutes later. It wasn't Deputy Wilson, but Officer Bryant again. He seemed skeptical of my story until Mrs. Morgan confirmed it. They took the Morgans to the station for questioning and put out another alert for Lily and my dad. I was back at square one. My dad had Lily again, and I had no idea where they were. I sat in my car, trying to think. Where would he take her? The cabin was compromised. Our old apartment was too obvious. Then I remembered something my mom had said during our prison visit. Something about a storage facility where they used to keep extra product. A place the cops never found during the raid. I drove back to our old neighborhood. It was almost 2 a.m. now. The streets were empty. I parked outside the storage facility where my mom said they kept their stuff. It was one of those 24-hour places with keypad entry. I had no code, no way to get in. I circled the perimeter, looking for another way. There was a fence in the back with a small tear. I squeezed through, tearing my shirt in the process. Inside, I had hundreds of units to check. I started walking the rows, looking for any sign of activity. Most were locked up tight with no lights showing. I tried to think like my dad. He'd want something familiar but not obvious. I remembered the unit number from my mom's old records, 227. I'd seen it on paperwork years ago when I was looking for my birth certificate. I headed straight there, heart pounding. As I approached Unit 227, I noticed a dim glow coming from under the door. I pressed my ear against it. I could hear voices inside. One was definitely my dad's. I needed a plan. I couldn't just burst in like at the cabin. That had barely worked, and I'd had the element of surprise then. I looked around for something I could use as a weapon. There was a broken broom handle leaning against a nearby unit. Not great, but better than nothing. I was about to make a move when headlights swept across the facility. A car was pulling in. I ducked behind a unit and watched. It was a police cruiser. Officer Bryant got out and walked directly to Unit 227. He knocked in a pattern, like a code. The door rolled up and my dad stepped out. They talked for a minute. Then Bryant handed him an envelope. My dad counted what looked like cash, nodded, and went back inside. Bryant drove away. Now it all made sense. Why the police were so slow to respond. Why Bryant seemed annoyed by my questions. Why my dad was able to make bail despite serious charges. Bryant was on my dad's payroll. Probably had been for years. I couldn't count on the police for help. I was on my own. I waited until I was sure Bryant was gone, then approached the unit again. I could hear my dad talking to someone on the phone. He sounded angry. I caught phrases like loose end and take care of the problem. I knew he was talking about me. I was the problem. The loose end. I needed to get Lily out now. I took a deep breath and knocked on the door, mimicking the pattern Bryant had used. The talking stopped. I heard footsteps approaching. The door started to roll up. I gripped the broom handle tighter. My dad's face appeared in the gap. When he saw it was me, his eyes widened. I swung the broom handle as hard as I could. It connected with his shoulder. He stumbled backward, cursing. I ducked under the door as it continued to rise. Inside, the storage unit had been converted into a makeshift living space. There was a cot, a small table, some chairs. Lily was huddled in the corner, her eyes red from crying. When she saw me, she started to get up, but my dad recovered quickly. He grabbed her arm and pulled her in front of him like a shield. You just don't know when to quit, do you? He growled. I stood my ground, broom handle still raised. Let her go, Dad. It's over. Bryant can't protect you forever. He laughed. Bryant? He's just one of many. I've got half the department in my pocket. You think anyone's going to believe you over me? I'm a concerned father trying to protect his daughter from her unstable brother. They'll believe the evidence, I said. The tapes, the ledger, your record. Evidence can disappear, he said with a smirk. People can disappear too. He reached behind him and pulled out a firearm. My heart sank. This was bad. Really bad. He pointed it at me, his hand steady. Lily whimpered. Here's what's going to happen, he said. You're going to walk out of here. You're going to get in your car and drive. Keep driving until you hit the coast. Start a new life. Forget about Lily. Forget about me. If I ever see you again, I'll unalive you. Simple as that. I looked at Lily. She was terrified, but there was something else in her eyes. Determination. She gave me the slightest nod. Then, without warning, she stomped hard on my dad's foot. He yelped in pain, his grip loosening just enough for her to twist away. away. She ran toward me. My dad raised the firearm again, but I was already moving. I threw the broom handle at him. It wasn't much, but it distracted him long enough for me to grab Lily and pull her behind a stack of boxes. A shot rang out. The bullet splintered the wood near my head. "You're just making this worse," my dad shouted. "There's no way out except through me." He was right. We were trapped. The only exit was the main door, and he was between us and it. I looked around desperately for another option. There was a small window high up on the back wall. Too small for me, but maybe big enough for Lily. I whispered my plan to her. She nodded, her face pale but determined. I counted to 3, then we made a break for it. I lifted her toward the window while my dad fired again. The bullet hit a metal shelf, sending sparks flying. Lily scrambled through the window and disappeared from view. Now it was just me and my dad. I ducked behind a filing cabinet as he fired again. The firearm clicked empty. He cursed and started reloading. I used that moment to rush him. We collided hard, both of us falling to the ground. The firearm skittered across the floor. We grappled, rolling across the concrete. He was stronger, but I was fighting for my life, for Lily's life. I managed to land a solid punch to his jaw. His head snapped back. I scrambled for the firearm, but he grabbed my ankle and pulled me back. He flipped me over and wrapped his hands around my throat. "I should have done this years ago," he hissed, squeezing tighter. Black spots danced in my vision. I clawed at his hands, but his grip was like iron. This was it. I was going to die here. My last thought was of Lily. At least she got away. Then suddenly, his weight was gone. I gasped for air, rolling onto my side. Through watery eyes, I saw Lily standing over our dad. She was holding a fire extinguisher. He was on the ground, clutching his head. "I called Deputy Wilson," she said, her voice shaking. "He's on his way. The real police, not Bryant." My dad lunged for her, but I tackled him again. This time, I didn't hold back. All the years of abandonment, all the pain he'd caused, all the danger he'd put Lily in, it all came pouring out. I hit him until my knuckles bled, until he stopped fighting back, until he lay still on the concrete floor, breathing but unconscious. Lily helped me up. We hugged tightly, both of us shaking. Outside, we could hear sirens approaching. For the first time in weeks, I felt like we might actually be okay. Deputy Wilson arrived with 3 other officers. They arrested my dad and called an ambulance for me. My face was a mess, and I had bruises forming on my neck. While the paramedics checked me out, Wilson took our statements. He seemed genuinely angry when I told him about Bryant. He promised to investigate. Ms. Ramirez showed up at the hospital. She looked tired but relieved to see Lily safe. She told me they'd found evidence in the Morgan's house linking them to my dad's substance operation. They'd been arrested too. Bryant was under investigation. Things were finally falling into place, but there was still the matter of custody. Ms. Ramirez said Lily would need to go to a proper foster home while they sorted everything out. I started to argue, but she surprised me by saying she was recommending I get emergency custody reinstated. The circumstances were unusual, but given everything that had happened, she believed Lily was safest with me. It would take a few days to process. In the meantime, Lily would stay with a vetted foster family, and I would be allowed to visit any time. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. For the first time in months, I felt like we might actually have a future together. As I sat in the hospital waiting for discharge papers, Lily sleeping in the chair next to me, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Amber at the corner store, asking if I was okay. I realized I'd completely forgotten about our date, about her. With everything going on, she'd slipped my mind entirely. I texted back, explaining briefly what had happened. She replied immediately, asking if there was anything she could do to help. I hesitated, then asked if she knew any good apartments for rent in town. Somewhere Lily and I could start fresh, somewhere safe. She said she'd look into it. Then she added, "You're a good brother. Lily's lucky to have you." I looked at Lily, sleeping peacefully despite everything. Despite all the trauma and fear, despite our dad's betrayal and our mom's neglect, she was still here, still fighting, still trusting me to keep her safe. I realized then that luck had nothing to do with it. We'd made our own family, Lily and I. We'd fought for each other when no one else would, and no matter what happened next, we'd keep fighting, together. The next morning, Deputy Wilson came to see us at the hospital. He looked like he hadn't slept all night, with dark circles under his eyes and coffee in hand. He told me they'd found my dad's stash in another storage unit. Substances, money, and a bunch of fake IDs. Turns out he was planning to skip town with Lily. The thought made my stomach turn. "We've got him on kidnapping, substance trafficking, child endangerment, and attempted unaliving," Wilson said. "He's not getting out anytime soon." I should have felt relieved, but I was still on edge. My dad had connections, people on his payroll. What if someone else came after us? Wilson seemed to read my mind. "Bryant's been suspended pending investigation. We're looking into everyone he worked with. Your dad's operation is falling apart." I nodded, but I wasn't convinced. I'd learned the hard way not to trust easily. The hospital discharged me that afternoon. My face was a mess of bruises, and my throat had dark purple marks where my dad had tried to choke me. The doctor said I was lucky there was no permanent damage. Lucky, there was that word again. Miss Ramirez showed up as promised with the foster family, the Parkers. They seemed nice enough. Mr. Parker was a high school math teacher, and Mrs. Parker worked from home as a graphic designer. They had no other kids, which was good. Lily needed space to heal. Saying goodbye to Lily was hard, even knowing it was temporary. She clung to me, her small hands gripping my shirt. "Just a few days," I promised. "Then we'll be together again." She nodded against my chest. "Don't disappear," she whispered. Those 2 words broke my heart. After everything she'd been through, her biggest fear was being abandoned again. I hugged her tighter. "Never," I said. "You're stuck with me for life, kid." The Parkers took Lily to their home, and I checked into another motel. This one was slightly nicer than the Pine View. At least the sheets smelled clean. I collapsed on the bed, exhaustion finally catching up to me. My phone buzzed with a text from Amber. "Found a potential apartment. 2 bedrooms, 1st floor, good neighborhood. Landlord's a friend of my uncle. Can show you tomorrow if you're up for it." I texted back a thank you. Then I passed out for 14 straight hours. The next few days were a blur of paperwork, meetings, and phone calls. I visited Lily every day at the Parkers. She was doing okay. Quiet, but okay. Mrs. Parker said she was having nightmares, which which didn't surprise me. We'd both probably be having nightmares for a while. Amber showed me the apartment she'd found. It was small but clean, with big windows and a tiny backyard. The rent was reasonable, especially with the kinship care stipend I'd be getting again once custody was sorted. The landlord, Mr. Chen, was hesitant at first. A 19-year-old guardian with no rental history wasn't exactly an ideal tenant, but Amber vouched for me, and he agreed to a 6-month lease. I signed the papers that day and used most of my savings for the deposit and first month's rent. I bought 2 beds from a secondhand store and a small kitchen table. Not much, but it was a start. 5 days after the storage unit showdown, Ms. Ramirez called. The emergency custody order had been approved. I could pick up Lily tomorrow. I sat on the floor of our empty new living room and cried. Not sad tears, just release. When I told Lily, she smiled for the first time in weeks. A real smile that reached her eyes. The Parkers helped us move her few belongings to the new apartment. They seemed genuinely happy for us, which was nice. Mrs. Parker gave me her number and said to call if we ever needed anything. I thanked her, knowing I probably wouldn't call. We'd relied on ourselves for too long to easily accept help now. Our first night in the new place was weird, but good. We ate pizza on the floor and watched videos on my phone. Lily fell asleep leaning against me, and I carried her to her new bed. I sat watching her sleep for a while, still not quite believing we'd made it through. The next morning, I got a call from Deputy Wilson. They were charging Officer Bryant with corruption and obstruction of justice. They'd found evidence he'd been taking payoffs from my dad for years. The Morgans were cooperating, giving up names of other people involved in the substance operation. The whole thing was unraveling. Your dad's lawyer is pushing for a plea deal, Wilson said, but the DA isn't biting. With the evidence we have, plus Lily's testimony, he's looking at 15 to 20 years minimum. I thanked Wilson for the update. After I hung up, I sat at our kitchen table, trying to process it all. My dad was going away for a long time. My mom was already in prison. Lily and I were truly on our own now, but maybe that was okay. Maybe that was better than having parents who hurt us. A week later, we had our first visit with a family therapist. Ms. Ramirez had set it up, part of our custody agreement. The therapist was a woman named Dr. Chen, no relation to our landlord. She had a calm voice and didn't talk down to Lily, which I appreciated. This isn't going to be easy, she told us. You've both been through significant trauma. Healing takes time. Lily nodded solemnly. But we have each other, she said, looking at me. That helps. Dr. Chen smiled. Yes, that helps a lot. We settled into a routine. I found a job at a local hardware store. The hours were flexible, and the manager, Gary, was cool about me needing time off for Lily's therapy appointments and school meetings. Lily went back to school. The first few weeks were rough. Kids asked questions about her bruises and why she'd missed so much school, but she was tougher than I gave her credit for. She handled it. Amber and I started hanging out more. Not dating exactly. Neither of us had time for that. But she'd come over sometimes, bring dinner, help Lily with homework. It was nice having someone else around who knew our story and didn't judge us for it. About a month after we moved into the apartment, I got a letter from my dad. I almost threw it away without opening it, but curiosity got the better of me. Inside was a short note. I know you won't believe me, but I'm sorry. I never meant for things to go this far. Take care of Lily. Do better than I did. No signature. No request for forgiveness. Just those few lines. I stared at it for a long time, then tore it into tiny pieces and threw it away. Sorry didn't undo what he'd done. Sorry didn't erase Lily's nightmares or the scars on my knuckles. Life wasn't suddenly perfect. We had bad days. Days when Lily wouldn't talk. Days when I'd find her hiding in her closet because she heard a car that sounded like our dad's. Days when I'd wake up in a cold sweat, convinced he'd escaped and was coming for us. But we had good days too. We went to the park. We made cookies that turned out terrible because neither of us could bake. We built a fort in the living room and slept there one night when a thunderstorm scared Lily. Small, normal things that felt like miracles after everything we'd been through. 3 months after moving into the apartment, I got another call from Ms. Ramirez. She wanted to meet. My stomach dropped. These meetings usually meant problems. I spent the whole day worrying, imagining worst-case scenarios. What if they'd decided I wasn't fit to be Lily's guardian after all? What if they were sending her to a real foster home? We met at a coffee shop near our apartment. Ms. Ramirez was smiling, which was a good sign. She had a folder with her. I have some news, she said. Your dad's trial date is set for next month. The prosecutor wants to know if Lily is willing to testify. I tensed up. No way. She's been through enough. Ms. Ramirez held up a hand. I agree. And so does the prosecutor, actually. They have enough evidence without putting Lily through that. I just needed to officially ask. I relaxed slightly. So what's with the folder? She slid it across the table. This is the paperwork to make your guardianship permanent, not just temporary or emergency status. Permanent. I stared at the folder like it might bite me. What does that mean exactly? It means no more check-ins from me, for one thing, she said with a small smile. It means the state recognizes you as Lily's legal guardian until she turns 18. It means stability. I opened the folder with shaking hands. There were a lot of official-looking documents inside. Forms to fill out. Places to sign. Why now? I asked. Because you've proven yourself, she said simply. You've maintained a stable home. Lily's attending school regularly. You're both going to therapy. You have a job. You're doing everything right. I didn't know what to say. After months of fighting the system, it felt strange to have it working in our favor. Think about it, Ms. Ramirez said. Take a few days. Talk to Lily. But I didn't need to think about it. I started filling out the forms right there in the coffee shop. Ms. Ramirez helped me with some of the trickier legal language. By the time we finished, my hand was cramping from all the signatures. What happens now? I asked, as she put the completed forms back in the folder. Now I file these with the court. There will be a hearing, but it's mostly a formality at this point. Barring any unforeseen issues, you should be Lily's permanent guardian within a month. I walked home in a daze. Permanent guardian. It was what I'd wanted all along, but now that it was happening, it felt surreal. I was only 19. Most people my age were in college, partying, figuring out who they wanted to be. I was raising a 13-year-old. When I told Lily that night, she hugged me so hard I could barely breathe. Does this mean no one can take me away? She asked. That's exactly what it means. friends, I said. She pulled back, her face serious. What about when I'm older? Will you still want me around? I ruffled her hair. Kid, you're stuck with me forever, even when you're old and gray. She rolled her eyes, but she was smiling. The hearing was scheduled for a Tuesday morning. I took the day off work. Amber offered to come with us for moral support, which was nice of her. We all dressed up. Me in the only button-up shirt I owned, Lily in a dress she'd borrowed from a friend at school, Amber in a simple blouse and skirt. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Just a judge, a court reporter, Ms. Ramirez, and us. The judge was an older woman with gray hair and reading glasses. She reviewed our case file, asked me a few questions about my plans for Lily's education and our living situation. Then she asked Lily if she wanted me to be her guardian. Lily stood up straight, looked the judge in the eye, and said, "He already is. He always has been." The judge smiled slightly. Well, now it will be official. She signed the order and banged her gavel. Just like that, it was done. Outside the courthouse, Lily couldn't stop grinning. Amber suggested we celebrate. We went to an ice cream place downtown and ordered the biggest sundaes on the menu. As we sat there, eating ice cream at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday, I looked at Lily, really looked at her. She was laughing at something Amber said, chocolate sauce on her chin, her eyes bright. She caught me staring and raised an eyebrow. What? Nothing, I said, just happy. And I was. Despite everything, our parents, the system, the fear and uncertainty, we'd made it. We'd built something good out of all that bad. It wasn't perfect. We still had a long way to go. But we were together. We were safe. We were family. That night, after Lily went to bed, I sat on our small porch and looked up at the stars. I thought about everything we'd been through, the close calls, the betrayals, the moments I thought we'd never make it. But we did make it. And whatever came next, we'd face it the same way we'd faced everything else, together.